Hello everybody and welcome back to your Leeds United versus Manchester United post-match reaction. We fought hard in that game. We fought hard and I must admit, I come out slightly disappointed. I think when you go 1-0 up in a game and I felt like we gave up quite a soft goal, you sort of come out and you're a bit deflated. But one thing I will say is, this weekend has been a great weekend for us. All the other teams have lost and we've picked up a point. And not just that, in the way that we picked up the point today, I don't think we played well today on the ball. I thought we were scruffy. I thought we couldn't find a pass. But one thing we always say with this Leeds United team, and this is imperative if Leeds United to stay in the division, is there is fight and there is hunger and there is desire and everything you want in a team. And sometimes you've got to look at it, and I always say, sometimes they won't have the quality and sometimes they won't play well, but desire and fight and hunger to try win the game regardless has to be there. That is a non-negotiable. And one thing I will give credit for this Leeds United team is they were playing badly today and they never stopped. They never stopped. And our goal epitomised that. Aronson, who was fantastic in the game, I thought he was our best player, I'm being totally honest. And you people know I criticise Aronson quite a bit. I thought he fully deserved his goal. And again, it came from Leeds United not having tons of quality, but Leeds United putting him under pressure in the final third and getting the reward, and we got our goal. And it was disappointing, I must admit, to give up their goal. I think part of it is because we haven't beat them in so long that it's like you're just so desperate to win the game. But as I said, I come out of it frustrated that we haven't won, but that's got to be a positive. That's got to be improvement from where we were. And it's also, as I said, we have got components of quality. And I said, for me, it's just like you come out of it and you sort of, obviously everyone was hyped to the game. I think most actual Leeds fans was predicting us to win the game. But it just didn't quite click for us today. I thought in possession, we were very rushed at times. I think Ampadu is, I talk about Ampadu all the time, and I don't want to make it all about Ampadu because I think people will do that. But I think Ampadu is a really cool head on a really sort of chaos pitch. And I think today it was a really chaos pitch and we didn't have that cool head in the middle. And I thought it was all rushed. It was all frantic. It was all trying to get it forward, sometimes too quick, which is something actually we haven't accused Daniel Farke's teams of very often. We're usually quite controlled and measured in possession. We actually weren't today, if we're being honest. But as I said, you come round to it and you go, that side of the game wasn't good. And as I said, on the ball, I thought we were poor. But the other side of the game, and the side that you need to show in games like that, in derbies like that, against them, of all teams, you have to go to the final whistle and you have to try play for the win at all times. I thought Daniel Farke did the right substitutions. He tried to change the system. He tried to change the game. We weren't sitting back and going for a draw like we've done earlier times of the season. We were pushing and pushing to try get that second goal and win the game. But unfortunately, due to sort of people making the wrong decisions, the Metro had moments at the time at the end where you're like, please shoot, he doesn't shoot. And as I said, we just lacked that end bit of quality. But it's sort of one of them where you come out of it and you go, yes, it wasn't fantastic, but you're almost proud of how committed they were to trying to do what every single Leeds United fan wanted them to do today. But I am disappointed slightly. I thought, to be honest with you, in terms of the game, I thought that sort of structurally, it didn't look quite right today as well. It didn't look quite sort of, I think they struggled early on in the game. And I thought Man United actually got a grip in the game quite early on in the first 30 minutes. I thought we started in the first 5 minutes, came out flying. And again, we were slacking passing, which I think was obviously a theme of the whole game. But then they managed to get a foothold in the game. I thought Cunha for them was one of them that was a star player for them, annoyingly. And I thought of all their attacking sort of players that they had, he was the only one really that offered any sort of quality. And if anyone was going to score, it probably was him. Obviously, he hit the post as well. But we hit the post with Calvert-Lewin, which I thought was more likely that could have ended up in the back of the net. Scooby says we've been a terrible game if it weren't for the sheer fight of them all. I think that's the word. Yeah, as I said, I agree with you, Scooby. I feel like it was a bad game to watch, but you can win scrappy games. And as I said, the frustrating thing is, I actually think with the goal they score with Cunha, obviously he gets across Bornau and gets that shot in goal. And Bornau, his recovery pace is just awful, if we're being honest. I didn't see that as much in the Liverpool game, obviously, because we were just sat so deep. So you didn't have to rely on recovery pace because we were so deep already. But in today's game, it was apparent to me that his recovery pace is not there. And I would actually go as far as saying, I don't think Cunha gets that shot at goal if it's Rodon. I think Rodon gets back in there and gets a block on it, and I don't think we concede that goal. I still worry about Perry as well. I think he's someone that sort of, he's just not good enough for me. And I've said it on a few times on the channel when people talk about sort of if Leeds United are to stay up, it's obviously a long way to go. I don't want to talk about it. But I actually do think, unless Perry's kicking can drastically improve from now to the end of the season, I think he's someone that potentially has to come out, and we've got to get someone better in. I don't think he's an absolutely dreadful sort of shot stopper. I think his handling's pretty decent. I think he's got too big of a frame. He always looks like too big to me, and I don't think that helps him. But again, his kicking is just so bad, it becomes a problem for us. And I think if we had a better kicker, and maybe Darlow is the option there. But if we had someone better in the goal who could sort of give Calvert-Lewin a bit more service, because it is service when the ball goes up, I think that would massively help, because it massively limits us. And we lose possession. I mean, in the first half, the ball went back to Perry, and he just sort of kicked it out of play for a throw, and in completely in no worry at all. And I think that's something that obviously Leeds United needs to look at as well. And I also thought as well, in terms of on the ball, Justin, I think Justin's a good defender, and I think he can fit in quite nicely at times. I don't think he's a right wing back though. He doesn't have as much going forward. I don't think he's got as much energy as Bogle either. And it was a real shame actually that Bogle missed the game obviously today with a minor calf injury, which he had, because I think he would have offered a lot more down the right hand side. I think he's also a bit better in possession. I think he's a bit quicker. And I think that he can act more in that sort of right wing back role, and I think he suits that right wing back role. Whereas I think Justin actually suits sort of a right back role much more than a right wing back role, if that makes a lot of sense. So I think that's something to bear in mind. I don't fully see why Farke sticks with Perry over Darlow. He's way too hesitant, and that is number one rule of 101 of goalkeeping. Yeah, I think there's something in that, mate. I think Perry's, I think will get a bit of scrutiny. But as I said, part of this as well, I'm trying not to be too negative, because even though I didn't think we played well, I sort of, as I said, I keep going back to this, when we talk about the components of how you stay in division, you're not going to play every week, but it's about making sure you pick up points when you're not playing well. And I think that sort of, as I said today, the fight and the hunger pushed us into getting the goal. As I said, the goal didn't come from anything of our own, really. It was a nothing ball forward, and Heaven obviously makes a mistake for them, and Aronson gets on that. But I can't stress the importance, and I don't want this to be a negative stream, because I actually don't think Daniel Farke nor the players deserve us to be really negative after that performance. I don't think they deserve that. They've given us a fantastic month. It's still been a really good weekend for us. We've extended the gap on West Ham and on Forest now. We're 4 points ahead of Forest. We're also 8 points now ahead of West Ham with a much better goal difference. So fundamentally, this has been a really good weekend. And also it's important as well in games, in my opinion, where if you can't win a game, don't lose a game. And I thought it was important at the end that, yes, we were fighting to try and win the game, and we were progressing the game. And I think everyone loved to see that we were trying to go forward, even as frustrating it was when we were just completely messing it up. But it was important that we didn't give that up, because I'd have been absolutely gutted as a dog if they'd have scored right at the end. And actually Shaw later on, didn't he, got down the line and sort of put a ball across, and it sort of nearly came to something, but I think Justin got a good block on it. And that would have been sick as a dog. So it was important when as I said, when you're not playing well, and Leeds have played well in a lot of games recently, that we continue to pick up points, and that's another point on the board, of course. Scooby says not sold an Okafor in any position than the wing. Yeah, I said this before kickoff. I actually thought, I think the problem you've got is that, and I think Farke understood this, when you play with wing backs, they've got a lot of work to do going forward and going back. Goodmanson's got a lot of work to do, Bogle's got a lot to do, or Justin in this game today. And because Justin wasn't providing the width on the right-hand side at all, in my opinion, it just didn't work. He wasn't getting up and down. It's not his fault. He's just not got the energy levels of a Jayden Bogle. And he's not as good going forward. He can't beat a man as well as Bogle can. And I think what that causes, it causes us to be really narrow. And our only really option to sort of win the game and sort of get anything from the game was sort of from a midfield space, and actually through Brendan Aronson. And I think that then in the second half, we changed system, didn't we? We went to sort of, rather than playing a sort of a 3-5-2, which we've played, we almost played more of a 5-4-1 formation, which is the formation we used to play at Liverpool, and Okafor started on that left-hand side. I actually thought, to be fair, though, Okafor had the beating of Lenny Yoro down that side, and I think he won. Even if you win a few corners down that side, it's enough, because we're so good from set pieces. And again, I thought we were dangerous, although I thought they were pretty dangerous as well. And I thought I can see why they've scored quite a few goals from set pieces as well. I thought their delivery was really strong. Pro, a bit unlucky with that shot. It's probably a fair result. Yeah, I thought it was in the end. I thought it was a fair result. I think if we'd have lost it, it'd have felt completely unfair. And I think if we'd have won it, it'd have felt completely unfair. One thing I do want to mention as well, by the way, I don't know if people felt this watching the game or in the ground when people watch it afterwards, but I just felt like every time the ball seemed to bounce, it just seemed to bounce to them. I don't know if that was a positional sense from us, but it just felt, and I know this is, as I said, basic sort of reasoning, but it felt like when it was scrapping around, which it did basically all game, the amount of times it felt like it bounced off one of their players, bounced off one of our players, bounced off one one of their players, and then ended up just spawning to like Sesko's feet or Cunha's feet. And I'm like, how can they get so lucky? But maybe that's just my sort of hatred of Man United and biasy towards them, that I just think that they're sort of jammy and scammy at all times. But I don't know. I think that's something to bear in mind. And the other thing that I thought was a disappointment is, I don't really, even though the subs came on, and I actually thought today, when I looked at their bench and looked at ours, that our subs could make a huge impact in the game. And I think Tanaka was better when he came on than the midfield was. And I think probably Farke should have done the substitution slightly earlier than he did as well. But it didn't make a huge difference. I thought, again, Nonto, although he was on for very little, was quite scrappy when he came on, but he wasn't the only one. But at one point, I just remember when he headed it, and he could head it anywhere, and he ended up heading it to one of their players, and it was like, what? Don't head it there. As I'm screaming at the TV in pure frustration. But yeah, overall, as I said, context has got to be applied today. And I think, obviously, tomorrow my camera seems to have gone mad as well. But obviously, context has got to be applied. And it's been a really good weekend. Obviously, we're going to talk about it in much more detail in the later show when we do the closing whistle, which will be out at 8 p.m. this evening. So I hope you're all ready for that. And we can talk in more detail, and I can sort of, I don't know, I usually can portray my thoughts in a much more sort of routine way than sort of instantly after the match, because usually when I've played it, I'm basically kicking every ball. So stick around for that. But as I said, context is important, and I think that we today have got to bear that in mind and go, this has been a really good weekend. And we've all the other teams have lost. We've got a point. We've dug in when we weren't playing that well and dug out a point. And we were fighting till the very death, which is some things that when you look at other teams around us, not to name names, I don't think they're showing that. And that, for me, is a huge positive. And I can watch that all day over watching some of the drab when we got relegated last time. I didn't feel like we were trying in games all day long. So yeah, Day says we were unlucky, but I'm happy with that. Yeah, I'm with that. As I said, I understand that players are not going to play well every week. I completely get it. And I don't, as I said, I don't think we played well today. But it wasn't for lack of effort, and it wasn't for lack of trying. And I can live with that. I can live with that. Anyway, thanks all for watching. As always, as I said, stay around for the closing whistle at 8 p.m. We'll get into more detail. We'll actually talk about, to be honest with you, what a great weekend it's been for Leeds United. Anyway, thanks all for watching, and I will see you all later, everybody. Bye for now.